watching North Coast News on KAEF ABC 23. At 6, severe weather first.
And it starts with that deadly, fiery big rig crash on the Klamath River Bridge. That crash killing one person, shutting down both directions of Highway 101 on that bridge for several hours today. Good evening, I'm Scott Rates.
I'm Nazi Javid. We have a lot of news to get to this Friday evening.
That crash happening on Highway 101 just south of Klamath around 10:30 this morning. You can see what it looks like in that area.
North Coast News reporter Alex Hassenstab joining us live now in the studio. She was at the scene of that crash.
Alex, you were the first to break this story on Facebook Live today. Big question right now, has that road reopened?
Scott, Nazi, while I was on scene, I actually saw Caltrans reopen the bridge to traffic around 3:15 this afternoon. Now, that crash involving both a Nissan Maxima and an empty semi-truck, miraculously, CHP says the driver of the big rig was uninjured and remained on scene. But officials say the driver of the Nissan was airlifted to the hospital and later died. Take a look at this damage. The semi-truck traveling northbound on Highway 101 when the CHP says a gray Nissan traveling south crossed the double yellow lines, hitting the semi-truck head on. That big rig then bursting into flames around 50 feet north of the initial impact. Soot everywhere. Crews with CAL FIRE and Crescent City putting out those flames, and that truck still smoking when we arrived on scene nearly 4 hours after the initial call. Officials say the driver of the semi not injured despite the severe damage to the big rig itself. CHP saying the driver of the Nissan was a man in his late 30s. He was airlifted to St. Joseph Hospital but did not survive. Investigators still looking into what caused that Nissan to cross into the other lane. Highway 101 was closed in both directions for around 5 hours. Crews working hard to clear the road of debris and soak up all the oil that was spilled on the road to make sure the bridge was safe to drive on. One-lane traffic was opened just after 3 this Friday afternoon. And a witness on scene told me the man who died was a tribal member, his name not yet released. Scott, Nazi, back to you.
So, Alex, I know this crash still under investigation at this hour. Any word on whether any of the oil that was all over that bridge spilled into the river there?
Well, Scott, you know, a lot of people were wondering that same thing. At this hour, there's no word on any environmental impact, but when I got there, Caltrans had clearly made an effort. They put some barricades up on those storm drains to try to prevent that from happening.
All right, good information there. Thank you, Alex.
Thank you, Alex. New tonight, our North Coast Senator Mike McGuire and First Five coming back together for a town hall update on adverse childhood experiences in Humboldt.
McGuire tells us that they've made some pretty big progress here to support the county's children.
That's right. I met with him today. He tells me they've accomplished a lot in the last year and a half since McGuire, First Five, Humboldt local leaders, they all gathered for a town hall. The issue at hand, of course, the impacts that adverse childhood experiences are having on our local kids.
The senator back in Humboldt tonight for a forum discussing community response to all of this.
Yeah, our reporter Andy Krause is live outside that meeting right now to tell us about it. Andy, good evening.
Yes, I'm here live at the Adorney Recreation Center, where Senator McGuire says they've launched a campaign to positively influence the lives of Humboldt's most vulnerable kids. Now, people are still shuffling in, excited to hear what's been done on the forefront of this local issue. I'll be stepping inside in just moments to hear what these community leaders have to say about Humboldt County child welfare. I'll be bringing you that report tonight at 10 and 11. Reporting live in Eureka, Andy Krause, North Coast News.
And new developments tonight at 6 on that deadly hit and run we first broke last night at 10 and 11.
At this hour, authorities telling us they now have a suspected vehicle they're looking for.
We're also learning who was killed in that accident. This all happening last night just before 9 o'clock on northbound 101 at State Route 200. The California Highway Patrol says when they first showed up, they found a man laying in the center divide with major injuries. This
was the scene last night when our reporter got there. Officers say the man who died has been identified as 34-year-old Richard Brandon Freeman from Hoopa. The CHP says evidence like debris found nearby points to a hit and run. That vehicle they're looking for is a 1992 to 2000 Ford Econoline van or similar van, cab and chassis. Now, officers believe it's white, may have a damaged side headlight and turn signal. The CHP asking for any information on this vehicle and driver, as well as information on Freeman's activities leading up to the crash.
Let's move to weather now. We have some rain coming in. Let's take a live look at the radar here, and you can see most of the shower activity To the north of Eureka and Arcata there, starting to push into the Hoopa Willow Creek area. Not too bad right now, but there is a lot more wet weather on the way for this weekend. Our first alert meteorologist, Rob Elvington, will be joining us a little bit later on in this broadcast to break down the timing of these showers and how they could impact your weekend.
And hopefully that rain will help the grape fire, which is that prescribed burn that turned into a wildfire near High and Palm. As of today, fire crews tell us it's burned 150 acres and nearly 170 firefighters battling those flames tonight. Officials say the forests are drying out sooner than expected, leading to increased fire behavior this time of year. Fire crews say they're attacking the flames today by air, and the weather's looking good with these cooler temperatures and chance of rain. At this hour, crews have it 10% contained, and there are no evacuation orders or structures threatened or destroyed.
Brand new details tonight at 6. We're learning who Arcata City officials' top candidate is for the interim police chief. This as the search for a full-time one continues.
Arcata City Manager Karen Deemer saying that they've completed the interviews for interim chief. She tells us their top candidate is from California, but not from within the Arcata Police Department.
That's interesting. And why they've begun full background checks here, those can take up to a month to finish. So this is somewhat of a process here that's going to take a little bit of time. Former Police Chief Tom Chapman, of course, resigning back on April 10th.
That's right, and that was right after former FBI agent Tom Parker, who was assisting in the David Josiah Lawson homicide case, resigned because of frustration with how he said Chapman was handling the investigation. Lieutenant Bart Silvers, who's worked for APD for 16 years, is now serving as acting police chief until an interim chief is named. And
the city manager tells us that they hope to have that interim chief here by June.
The NAACP making strong recommendations to Humboldt State University.
Coming up on North Coast News, why they're asking HSU to stop recruitment from certain neighborhoods, plus what the university's response is. That's ahead tonight.
And
I said something in the heat of a stressful situation, and I regret it.
That man using a racial slur in a California community now furious. What the mayor says needs to happen going forward. That story in minutes.
Plus, we just showed you the live radar. Here's a look outside today, and you can start seeing those clouds coming in. We've been seeing on and off showers throughout the day. Sometimes the sun peaks out for a little while, and then we get the clouds that come back in, and that rain kicks back up. Like we said, we are expecting more rain throughout the weekend. Just how much, and could it hinder your weekend plans? Our first alert meteorologist, Rob Elvington, tracking the timing of the next weather maker as they push through your backyard. He will be joining us in less than 2 minutes. You know what you're watching.